Well, hello and welcome to that favorite time of the day where you just sit back, relax, and we're bringing you issues and discuss it in depth. And today, the issue on the table is the Council of State. There's been two schools of thought as to whether it's relevant or not relevant. There are other thoughts as to look, let's try and strengthen it, let's try and scrap it and all. But you know something? As a traditional ruler, I have my own Council of State called Besonfo. Now, the Besonfo are there and you consult them in times of real difficulty. You call them at 5 a.m. in the morning, they come, you put the issues before them, and they jojo and argue and help you come to decisions of how you're going to run your little kingdom. They also serve as little judges or, little miniature courts where, if somebody's goat went and ate somebody's corn or something, you could go and report to them. They would call, investigate the issue, and pass judgment. And believe it or not, in all our little communities dotted around Ghana, they hold the fort. But when you magnify it and bring it down to the national level, what role do they play? It is said that they have to give the president advice. President is not obliged to take the advice, good or bad. And therefore, one then asks, well, what's the point in giving an advice if the guy you're advising is not obliged to take it? Folks, my name is Anan Sakwa, Chief of Akomo Dumasan, your favorite host. When I come back, I will introduce my guest and we will talk about the relevance of the Council of State on the national level. Then go. Is the Council of State still relevant? With me in the studio, I have Victor Kojoga Adawudu, private legal practitioner. Victor, you're welcome.
It's a pleasure, Nana.
Looking very dapper. Always dapper. Never lets me down. Very dapper. And then I have my brother Fred Odro. I must say, Fred, has pulled shown a massive sacrifice this evening for being here, and myself and the team are very, very grateful because it was in the last minute and we called him and he says, Nana, because it's PM Express, I'll be here. And so, Fred, we are very grateful.
You're welcome, Nana.
And Fred is a governance analyst, and therefore I'll start with Fred. Council of State, still relevant?
Nana, I believe it is very relevant, especially we should see it in a context. In your intro, you did mention as a chief, you have your basin, that group of people you rely upon. And indeed, if you go into that system, even in that, especially in that traditional setting, that basin team, that 7-member team that advises the chief is quite representative of the various clans. We have, in developing our democracy, have tried to fashion something similar. Then again, if you look at democracies around the world, you realize that in most parts of the world, they practice bicameral systems, where you have the lower chamber and the upper chamber. In Ghana, we believe, we have this dogged belief we are in a unitary state, so we chose to have a unicameral system, which is we have a single parliament. We don't have an upper chamber and a lower chamber. So I believe there was a need to bring on board certain people who could serve in that capacity as a council without any, if you look at the the constitution, there shall be a Council of State to counsel the president in the performance of his functions. Briefly, this encapsulates all that they do. They are to counsel. They are there to advise. And I think it is good. But maybe it's time we start looking at the composition and how well maybe they can be given more powers to perform their duties. But I sincerely believe it's very good and we should encourage.
Let me.
No, that's where he left it off. I think it's still relevant. It will continue to be relevant. And there's no day that the Council of States will never be relevant in this country. If you look at this, it's a living organism, it will grow. And it is futuristic in mind that the Council, I've had the opportunity to know some of the Council of States members and others and the kind of work they do. They counsel the president. It gets to a point when people in leadership, especially the president and some of them, they need an advice. They need people to counsel them. It just goes to reflect that nobody has monopoly over knowledge. The reason why they are there to counsel the president, if you look at the composition with the people who have to be appointed, you will realize that there have been people who have served in their chosen field and they've gotten to the apex. So if you decided to be a policeman, it will be a retired IGP, a retired Chief Justice, a retired CDS. These are people who have seen it all in their chosen field. So they will be able to know the in and out of what happens within their industry and will be able to give an advice to the president. The president might not know all that goes on within those other sectors. So you would see that he's been given the opportunity to bring in those people. Then he is to appoint 15 other persons. And if you look at the caliber of people who go there, they are eminent citizens who go there. People who are appointed who goes to the Council of State, I can tell you that they look around and see that what qualification, what is it bringing onto the table? What expertise do they have? Because even within Council of State, they have committees that looks into the economy, committees on legal. They have committees that work, they sit. And even the Constitution gives them the power that they can meet the president, parliament, any other institution. So it is a very relevant thing. Just to add to, you are a traditional ruler. Yes, you have a council that helps you to come out with very sound and well-researched advice. That is when you speak as a chief, the people applaud you, that this is a man of wisdom. That's the kind of thing that has been done for the presidency, so that he will be able to rely on their counsel and advice. So for me, I think the Council of States is still relevant. If you look at the work and the function that they will have to perform, you see it's enormous, to even the extent that they can look at bills. When the president refers a bill to them for amendment, they propose, they can say that no, there should not be any amendment. There can be an amendment. They can even go to extent and say what Parliament has done, it's wrong. So I believe it is very, very important. The issues why people would think that the Council of State is that their meetings are in camera. Their meetings are not open to the public. But even within that clause where their meetings is supposed to be in camera, it even goes on to say that when they invite you or the public and other people can be invited into their meetings. So it is not like it is a closed door, that what is done in there is shrouded in secrecy. When they think that they have to invite consultant experts, because the Constitution gives them the power, that with the approval of the president, they can bring in experts, people they consider very knowledgeable in the sectors, to advise them, to see how they'll be able to perform their duty. So I believe that if you look at the basis, almost all the persons who have been appointed, people feel, oh, it is about loyalty and allegiance. But I tell you that one of the criteria they look at is competence. One of the other work they do, why they are relevant, is that where any law, the constitutional law, says that in consultation or in accordance with the advice of Council of State, when people are being appointed, just like the Public Service Commission, they do background check. They always go to find out how these people, whether they are competent to do the work or not. And I can tell you, Council of States, sometimes they even reject people. They send their names. They send names to people to be on boards and others, and they reject the list. They will tell them, no, A, B, C, D, we don't think they are competent. We don't think they should be on this board. So, if you are not privy to the working of the Council of State, you will sit down and say you think it's not relevant. Let me quickly, I think one of the major reasons why people think that it is not relevant in this.
Okay, let's take a visual from Samuel Kujeto, who was also, elaborating on how we have to strengthen the Council of State. State.
Of course, I mean, I'm supposed to serve my country. Why shouldn't I be happy to serve?
Okay. But some have said that this Council of State is a toothless bulldog. Recently, Supreme Court decisions have said that it cannot even have its rules and regulations or advice it gives to the executive president of the country being followed. Are you going to serve on a board whose advice may be thrown out or deemed not to be binding on the executive president?
Well, the Constitution did not give them authority to compel the president. And we should draw a distinction between an advisor, a counselor, as opposed to someone who has authority and power. They are two different things. But that does not mean that you should not have a counselor. The counselors are always useful for anybody and everybody, even every individual needs a counselor, because you may be going wrong. Someone needs to point it out to you. We always say that in our own adage and said, when you are cutting a path in the bush, it's only the man who is behind you who can tell whether it is straight or crooked.
But the idea is also that if you tell me it is straight or crooked, I'm supposed to take heed, correct my path, and move in the right direction. To the extent that it is mostly seen and we are told that these advices go unheeded and the president turn on their own to disregard the advice from the Council of State, regardless of what form or mode they actually give this particular advice. And the huge expenditure we are told recently that goes into this particular council's engagement. The fact that recruitment or people who get to be serving there, except those who are actually done through political appointments and people of astute nature, those who are elected based on electoral college that is de facto partisan, is this really a body worth keeping?
There is nothing wrong in having a partisan election. To tell you the truth, the elections are meant to be non-partisan. But we all know, of course, the party is involved in it. You might as well just tell me that the United States Senate is toothless. Or you tell me that the House of Lords in England is useless, so we should abolish it.
But they have special enforcement powers.
No.
It just doesn't have.
They all have powers to act one way or the other. But you may find out that it's depending on the way they relate to the presidency. That if a rapport is built in such a way that the president has such confidence in them, he himself will be calling them often for advice. Or they will call him to advise him if they see something going wrong in a country. So it's part of machinery. It is not perfect. And I would prefer that we should find a way of perfecting it. But that is not the reason why I should reject to serve, merely because of that.
But shouldn't you, being a very bold person, being a man who's astute and understand the laws of this country, shouldn't be you at this age be recommending either a replacement of this body? with a much more effective, powerful one that can do the work properly.
Maybe you are not getting the picture of what I'm driving at. What I'm saying is that it's all right for me to be outside and be criticizing the institution when I have not been involved in it. I know its weakness, and I have advocated. Indeed, I can even tell you that if you like, you can go and interview President Kufuor, that he and I had discussed it when he came into office to talk about how we can reform and transform that into a more powerful body. But then I told him that it cannot be done because the Constitution is a constitutional provision.
But constitutions can be amended.
Oh, yes, of course. But he cannot go and amend Constitution. There's a whole process of it.
So you think, should that process start now?
Oh, the process already started long ago.
Yes.
There was
That process stalled. That constitutional review process was completely
there
symbolic.
was no reason why it should have been stopped because a lot of money, millions of dollars was spent on that thing. The report is there. The proper thing is to bring the report. Why was it not implemented?
Okay.
Why was it not implemented? Because someone was not desirous of bringing about the changes.
So what kind of council of state would you want to see?
I want to see a council of state which is more powerful, but perhaps even more inclusive, so that you can have people of acumen, people of experience and knowledge who can be there as a proper guide to the presidency. And perhaps even from reference that when Parliament passes a law or a proposed law has come there, they can make a proper input to ensure that the law has been properly debated, argued, and that whatever is coming is going to be in the interest of the country and also in the interest of the presidency and governance.
So that was senior citizen lawyer Sam Mukujetu, who's also a member of the Council of State. And when you're talking about astute and competent, you dare not even think of questioning him. So that's out of the window. But I know even though I catch you mid-flow, let me go to Fred and say, Fred, if you give them powers, then they become the president. I mean, if they can stop the president from doing something, that could be dangerous. If they say, no, Mr. President, you're charting this path and it's wrong, and so don't do it, that could be dangerous because maybe the president could be doing something which is right, and they could sabotage him.
No, my worry is that in our part of the world, we tend not to want to ever resign. If indeed anybody goes into the Council of State and some members feel so strongly that the president has erred in not taking the particular advice they are giving, let them start resigning. They may not, because of the oath they may swear, they may not want to say, this is the reason why I'm resigning. But if you're having 3-4 people resigning out of the maximum 25-member committee, it will send a signal out there. But for as long as, you see, these are not elected as like the presidents. But that takes me to another realm which we may talk about. Even the representation. I believe the representation is not adequate. And I'm not too happy with the mode of selection of some people onto the council. And I believe we should start talking about replacing some of that kind of representation should be looked at. So by and large, I don't think they need more powers per se. It is not a second chamber. Even second chambers.
What's the advantage of those who have second, the upper and lower thing? What advantage do they have?
No, the advantage is that, I mean, we can look at two systems. You look at the British system, where the House of Lords. Some are there, the peers, the live peers, and those are not the people. But some people might have done some wonderful things in their lives, and they are given the peerage to come in there to bring their experience. Some of them might have even been former prime ministers, former leaders of various parties. They are taken into the second chamber. They are there to bring their expertise and their experience to bear on the purely partisan lower house. The American system is not like that. I mean, the Senate, if you look at the House of Reps and the Senate, you realize that they are, this side, these people are representing the states and these are representing various districts and their own demarcation. But the issue is that you get one house looking at issues, needing the consensus or the agreement of the other house. And even where there are, serious divergence of views, normally, particularly in the virtual system, for instance, the upper house doesn't have too much power. If you look at our Council of State, you can see some elements of the British upper chamber being, you can see some sense of that being in our destiny, because they have a period within which they must make their decisions. They can't hold on to issues for too long. So sometimes 30 days, they are not supposed to be sitting for too many times, like you see with the lower chamber. But I believe strongly that the system is good. We need to nurture it. But if we want to go back to the constitutional review process, I think we can start looking at it. I want to see teachers be represented there, or organized labor, doctors, the TUC, having somebody there to speak on these things. Because as if we are talking about purely economic issues, you need to get the advice from the other side to understand the issues. Then we need to expand it. We are a multi-party democracy. Why can't we have reps from other parties in there? Also, you see, we are talking about national unity, and I believe the Council of State can serve us very well by helping to unite us. So whenever there's an issue to be discussed, and they sit in there and decide, and they look at how to build consensus, they can also speak to their various groupings and get them to understand certain issues better. So we need, I don't think they need more powers, but they need to be strengthened. They need to be given more support in terms of expertise. The president himself admitted in the thing that their guest house is in no good shape. Some of the facilities they need are not in place. So I think they should be given the necessary facilities and support, the expertise. If they need to bring on board some people to advise them, you should support them to get all those things so that they can appreciate the issues and give the best possible advice the president may need.
Victor, just coming to think about it, and I'm using myself. I don't think there's some people can force me to take the advice, though. They will plead with you, advise you, talk to you kindly, but they cannot give me instructions that don't do this. They cannot stop you. They can only advise you, and it's up to you to go and sleep and think about it as to, do I heed to it or do I don't? As we are just talking, I'm just thinking, and I just thinking if they had the powers to stop me, that could be difficult.
No, because at the end of the day, the buck stops with the president. He takes the ultimate responsibility for his actions and inactions. Now, when he's given the advice, I believe that it makes the decision that you take very solid. Like what you were saying about, I believe that that's why the Constitution gave the president that he should be able to appoint 15 persons. So when he's appointed 15 persons,
actually 14.
Yes, he's supposed to be looking at the sectors and the industries from where he would have that's why his hands have not been tied. That look at it, the expertise that you want. And I think going forward also, the council itself is giving the permission with the approval of the president to say, we need some experts, we need some consultants to come and form a committee to work with us. Yes, if you're not bound by the advice, does it mean that advice is useless? I'm not bound by it, but it just tells you that when you, in your introspection or retrospection, you want to find out what is the reasoning or wisdom behind the advice. When I take one decision, what will be the ramification? The other decision, the decision lies with the president. So I believe that when these people, the Council of State that has been put up, it was put up that it should be there with people who have had experience in their chosen field. The president is also giving a hand to choose the kind of people he wants. The 10 people who are elected, if you watch, I think from 1992, most people who are elected cuts across, mostly are paramount chiefs. You'll find most of the regions, yeah, the paramount chiefs who are the custodians of our culture. Some you find senior public officers who are served and maybe they are on retirement. So those are the elections. It is only that, yes, we all know that people who sympathize with the ruling government, most of them are the people who offer themselves for election, because nobody wants, there are people who don't want to be in the halle-berry of politics. They believe that, look, I think we have achieved something for ourselves, that we don't want to get into the politics, the hotbed of politics.
Partisan.
Yeah, the partisan politics. So they sympathize with that. But that does not mean that when they get there, they are not objective. It does not mean that they are partial. They speak their mind, that it is for the president who takes that decision. One of the greatest things that has made people to think that the Council of State is not relevant in these days is the decision that was taken in the case.
Muntie 3.
No, the Muntie 3, I can explain to you the Muntie 3 things that went into it.
I'll come back to you with the Muntie 3.
Yeah, so let me just explain the case. There was a recently, even before this, where they said that the Judicial Council were challenging that the Judicial Council has advised the president on appointment of some justices to the Supreme Court. The pith of their, or the crux of their matter was that they recommended about 5 persons. Now, whilst the president was going to appoint, he took the last 2. So he did not go according to the numerical 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th. So they were saying that the president is bound by our advice. That's the case, the whole part of the case. That the president should have started from 1, 2, 3, 4 before he comes to the 5th one. And the court said no, he's not bound by advice. But the Constitution has put in safety mechanisms within that there should be competence, he should be looked at before. So the president cannot go outside the safety mechanism that has been put. You have to look into it and say that this is it. But that does not mean that if the president decides not to take the 1st person, does not mean he cannot come for the 5th person. So if you look at that decision itself, it is not a blanket decision and says that any advice but any other person, it is useless. It says that it is good. There's mechanism within all the laws, the Constitution, that even if you are going to be appointed as a public servant, you need to go through the Public Service Commission. These are safety mechanisms that has been built so that we could see that there's competence. People are not put in wrong positions that would say that, yes, we know this man sympathizes with us, but he goes to a place where he will mess up. There are some institutions, I've always said, you can be a party sympathizer. You have all the loyalty and allegiance to the party. If you are put there, you will fail miserably because it demands some competence that if you don't have it, you will not understand anything over there. I believe these are the things that the Council of State would always look and recommend and advise that we believe looking at the competence and others of the persons who you believe to be there, we don't think he will do a good job. So those are the things that I believe still the Council of State has to be strengthened. We'll have to allow the president so that maybe the party, the party puts so much pressure that this is where we want to go. And the president is torn between when appointing people, but I believe that he's been given a leeway to look at the sectors, as Fred has said. If issues that would deal with doctors, will deal with teachers, organized labor. You have the opportunity to appoint some of these people over there. That can give you good counsel.
At Nana Ansakwa, so you can send a tweet to Nana Ansakwa, and then I will read the messages to you. We're going to get what the president charged the council to do. So let's hear that.
Boscamp.
I look forward very much to working with the council that will offer me straightforward advice based on unvarnished truth. I look forward to working with a council that will help all of us deepen our democracy. And I look forward to working with the council that will help us deliver a prosperous Ghana.
The inaugurated council of 24 members.
Well, so that was the president charging the Council of State to give him straightforward advice and not just sweet talk or sugarcoat him. Bosumfo is tweeting and he's on the attack here. Says, Nana, when your guests say it's relevant, can they provide us with some scenarios where the Council of State has played a role? He goes on and says they should give us specific cases of their importance and not just say they are important. They should give us cases. It says the first time I publicly heard their input was to advise a former president to overturn a Supreme Court ruling. But we'll come back to that. But before then, let me go to Fred and say, Fred, should the Council of State have a publication where their advice or their opinions, so that the public knows, oh, this is what the Council of State, maybe they say there's a new airline coming. Council of State say, look, president is important or not important. We know that's how they thought. Could that help? But if we don't see, just like Obusufu say, he doesn't see anything that they're doing.
You see, I was just trying to find the relevant portion, but I believe the law itself does not allow them to give their advice in public. I was just trying to check the constitution, but
it's always in camera.
Yeah, their sittings, their advice are always in camera. But the issue is that, Nana, for instance, you cited your own case, your Besson. Are they?
Going to stand in town council and say, oh,
they don't.
This is what we
they will
suggested.
meet with you in private and give you their opinion about a situation. Even before you go to adjudicate on matters, you may have sat on the case. You may need to get the historical facts relative to that case, even before you go to sit in public. But then they would have told you their opinion, but you're not bound by it. You see, wanting them to come out to tell us about it, I mean, look at the category of people who are mostly selected, especially if you look at the mandatory positions, like the former chief justice, a former chief of defense staff, a former inspector general of police, and then the president of the National House of Chiefs. These are no mean positions. And in addition to the people that the president can select, the 10 other people the 11 others the president can select. If you look at their backgrounds over the period, you realize these are people, very respected members of the society. I do not want us to start thinking that because we don't know the specific advice they give, and mind you, they may advise the president, and the president, as the court said, is not bound by their advice. So the back, as Mr. Adaodu said, stops with the president. And it is acceptable. It is done in a lot of jurisdictions. So it's not a new thing to Ghana. And even in our political history, it's not the first time we have it. So I'd want to suggest, let's not, we may not like one or two things we believe they may have done. But then they have opinions, so do we. The fact that we may not agree with them over one or two decisions, so to speak, doesn't make them irrelevant. That is my candid opinion on that.
Victor, one or two diseases. I mean, Muntier 3 was a
No, 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 let
cracker.
me,
So
let me,
explain.
even before I get to the Muntier, you see, their sittings are in camera. There are a lot of things. I have been privy to one or few things that they have sat on, things that come and they discuss. They have sometimes emergency meetings, very topical national issues, even issues that border that they sit and they request that they can have meeting with the president. So there are issues that when it comes up, they will discuss with the president. It doesn't come to the public, and it will be out of place to say that on this specific occasion, on this matter, the Council of State sat. I don't think that I'll be permitted to say that. That is why sometimes we cannot make, examples or classic examples when it started. Now, if you look at the Muntier 3, I believed in that case, it was a constitutional power that had been given. Now, do you know that when a case or somebody has been sentenced for murder and other things to condemn, that person can still petition the president. And when he petitions the president can give it to Council of State to look at or remit it back to Supreme Court, that some judges should be appointed and look at it. And they can determine and tell the president that within this judgment, that the person has been condemned, within something should be done with it. With the Muntier 3, this is what confuses other people. When it comes to judicial power, no one can exercise it apart from the judiciary. Judicial power has been given to them, not even the president, the parliament, or any other public officer can say that when they have exercised their right, dispense justice, you may like it, may not like it, you want to turn it dead or throw it away to the dogs. What happened in the Muntier 3 was that they looked at the constitutional provision. Now, that constitutional provision says that when this happens, the president, or upon petition, the president can remit, or will still says that the time that has been given will be too much. Let me reduce it, or be on the bond of good behavior. Once you come in, he can still make you go back. That was a constitutional power that has been given to the president, and that had been invoked. It was, what has to be done was that it should be based on the advice from Council of State. Now, so this was an issue that the petition was sent to the Council of State. I can tell you that apart from the Council of State that was advising the president, that had advice, the president sought advice from different places, even within the judiciary itself. I can tell you. You see, and they said, and some of the advice was that, look, we have done our job as the judiciary. We have punished them. You have a constitutional power. If you want to exercise it, the buck stops with you. If you don't want to exercise your constitutional right power that has been given to you, the buck stops with you. I believe it is with some of these advices that the president, in his good faith, thinking that this is what has to be done, exercise that. But upon hindsight,
but that's very unfair.
No. You see, upon hindsight, I believe that releasing this Muntier 3, people or part of the society thinks that it was not right because it was a slap in the face of the judiciary. But if you put the two together, that at the end of the day, posterity would judge whether the president exercised his constitutional power rightly or wrongly. Whether the judiciary also exercised their judicial power rightly or wrongly. These are the two different things that make it. So it is not like the judiciary has taken a decision and the president says that it's a wrong decision. The president agrees that the judiciary has the power to exercise the judicial power, and what he's exercising is good. I believe that posterity would leave us. People were not happy that, no, when you do this, you encourage people to do this. This should have been a lesson.
But you know, what was the Council of State's advice? That, look, go and exercise your power if you want to, or we as Council of State are telling you, no, Mr. President, don't you even dare.
We can't, because these are held in camera. Not even the president.
Fred wanted to come in.
Yes.
Incidentally, recently, a former member of the Council of State was trying to justify that decision. And I was very shocked. I wish he had not come out to speak to that issue. My view is that maybe even the President Mahama, on hindsight, may not want to take that decision. But at that time, I felt he was in between the rock and a very hard place. Here were his own ministers signing petition. The whole party machinery was behind the people. And then there was the other side of the society. You see, sometimes my worry is that some decisions, you don't even look at your political opponents, but look at civil society, the silent group of the population that is quiet and looking at you. I believe maybe politically the president found himself in a very difficult situation. Yeah. I would even want to believe the president was not comfortable giving them that remission. I believe it was remission. Yeah. It wasn't a pardon. It was a
no, it was not a pardon.
But with the exception of the former member coming out to tell us that the Council of State indeed supported that decision, something to which I feel very
they'll have to rebrand.
Most unfortunate point, because even if notwithstanding what he has said, I don't want to still accept the fact that the council said release them or let them stay in. Because at the end of the day, their decision is supposed to be in camera. And the president is not bound by their decision either way.
Well, keep your messages coming. Go onto Facebook and my Joy News TV Facebook and put your messages there. I shall print it for me to read it out. And then you can tweet me at Nana Sakwao and I would read your messages for you. And these are some of the messages on Facebook. Harina Eliasu Tamale. They are very vital to the government of this nation. A lot of the appointments are done in consultations with them. These are men and women of substance who have gone through the mill. Let's support them to offer advice that is in the interest of Mother Ghana. Richard Kwekufrimpo Manso, what kind of advice at all will the Council of State give that they enjoy all those goodies from the state? A salary of 16,000 every month alone can pay the allowances of national service personnel to do other things for the state. All these will happen, yet we would be told by government that there's no money to buy crew to fix do so. God help us. Yebi Godwin, the president has special advisor. So is the need of the 12 members of state? So is there need for the 12 members of state? Anyway, they are also Ghanaians to enjoy Ghana money. If my father were there, I would be laughing by this time. Baya Jameh, they are still and would be relevant as long as the word advice and counseling still exist. You can take someone's advice or leave it in an advice. Advice is different opinion. Triple M Murad, he says, I hope the advice to him should not be merely on their own interest, but in the interest of Mother Ghana. And then I have African Yella Kwai Mausi Dogbe. If only it's going to be politically biased, that's all he said. And then a couple more before I come to studio. Parkwesi Asaribidiako. I think it's relevant, but the allowance is too much. That money can be used for other things. People seem to be very worried about the money. They're not small boys, so they're big boys. Murad comes in again. Ghana. Well, Aisha. Well, okay, this is a marriage proposal. Aisha, you're such a cute woman, and I will marry you. So that's a marriage proposal in there. You need to be in the Council of State to marry Aisha. So get yourself in there. Rex Amwako prices, I'm keep you mute to watch them on PM Express. Yeah, we'll try and get one of them here so they explain to us what it is they do. The president in electing ministers, consults the Council of States. Otherwise, you're not fully. I mean, what's the whole idea?
No, it still comes to the competence, whether the person is suitable. I can tell you, because I have been privy to some of the things that are done. People had been proposed. Some went to Council of States, they were dropped. People, they get the date, the security agencies, when people have to be appointed, they go and they do background checking. Your lifestyle, what had happened, it comes into play. But it's just because they are not able to admit the public into their meetings and their discussion. I think what people are a little bit worried about is that they don't see their activities. If the Council of State would take an opportunity where the Constitution also even allows that they can invite the public to some of their meetings, I believe if they can juggle it, that sometimes what they are going to discuss and others, let the public be aware before they go into camera. So the public would also have some confidence that there are some issues that are going to be discussed. But the proceedings and things that are done is sacred. It is classified. The public will start to begin to see the kind of work they do. Some they sit as late as 12 a.m. Discussion, heated argument. They invite people, especially even within the economy. They invite the ministers and others and say, look, what is happening? This is how we think it should be. Why are we not getting it? It's discussions that they have. But because we are not aware of the activity. So I think they should look at the Constitution itself. It says that they can invite some of the public so that people will get to know what they do. When it comes to the money, a lot of people are talking about the salary. I think their salary is supposed and it is charged to the consolidated fund. Now, this is the allowances that they are entitled to, and the law says that it should be under Article 71. That's what the Constitution has said. So it is the emolument for the Article 71 that they are part of. It is not just that they themselves decided that pay us this, or the president decides that I'm going to pay you this. It is the range, the bracket of which they fall within. That is why their salary and allowances are given to them in that way. So I think that going forward, the Council of State itself has to be proactive. It doesn't mean you invite the people to sit in your meetings. You can do general briefing. We are going to have a meeting. We are discussing few issues of national importance, and this is how we go. I believe if they do that and engage the public as to the kind of work they do, people will start to see the importance, because I know they do a lot of work.
So is their primary role just to advise the president, or can they advise in media or call them? I don't know.
No, they can advise other bodies.
Yeah.
The parliament They can advise Parliament, they can advise other public bodies that so seek the advice. The fact of the matter is that they can impose their views.
No.
So most of the time, you should seek their view. I mean, I was looking for this point. Article 92(3) states, the Council of State shall hold its meetings in camera, but may admit the public to any meetings whenever it considers it appropriate.
Yeah.
So I believe the Council of State is there for all of us. It's there to advise the country. But we need to go to them. But then, if, for instance, I come to you as a chief with my marital problems, and you talk to me, you advise me, oh, do A, B, C, D. And I go away, and the next day, I hear Nana sitting on there saying, oh, I cancelled Fred. I told him to do A, B, C, D. Would I feel comfortable coming back to you another time for it? So I think the in-camera sitting and even the advice that they give in camera, I believe is okay for now. It is not Parliament. Parliament is there to serve as a check. The Council of State is not there to serve as a check. That is what we seem to be forgetting. We have bodies, constitutional bodies, that are there to serve as check on the governance system. The Council of State is there to provide, I mean, they are there. You see, typically, the Council of State is not supposed to be partisan. It's supposed to be highly experienced, highly knowledgeable set of people. That is what brings me back to the issue of some people who are seeking to enter the council, seeking to become members through that. Somebody, I believe, was 24 years. So I said, what can you tell the president? I'm not saying young people are not smart, but then, please, let us allow people of substance.
Maybe high-tech advice, WhatsApp, Facebook.
High-tech advice. They can go, the council, if they so need, if they so desire to advise the president on high-tech, has every power to invite whoever, I mean, in consultation with the president anyway, to come in and advise them. It doesn't mean that you have to be a 24-year-old sitting in there. I believe we should even have a clause in the law that states that if you are not above 60 years, you shouldn't be a member. I would be very much for such an arrangement.
No, it is because people cannot appreciate the work that the council does. So with the idea of populism, that when we stand the election, we will win. Or the party, we know the election, it is the party with the every district assembly bringing 2 people, they will vote for me. But I can tell you, people like that will get in there and see that their performance is abysmal. They will not even fit into the system. People go to Parliament, and when they go to Parliament, they see that it is all about reading bills, understanding, drafting here and there. It becomes a little bit difficult, and they lose that confidence. So you realize that most of them, they get there and they think they want to beef up. Some of them will not even be able to speak or fit into it. But it's just because they think that when I get into Parliament, this is where the people are. It's here. But they get in there and they find the inadequacy that they have. And some of them try to beef up. And you see, they come on. The others who cannot fit into it, you realize that. So it is because people don't understand the workings of it. They think you go to Council of State, you sit in, you meet the president, you are given some drinks, some largesse, then you go.
You give advice, he doesn't take it.
No. And so I believe if people appreciate and get to understand the workings of Council of State, they will see that it's an onerous tax. It's a work that you do, and you enjoy it because you only have the passion and the experience that you have of your substance, that you are giving some good advice. But just to get in there, I think you'll be miserable. You realize that you can't even fit in there.
So there's definitely a need to modernize it.
I will go for some level of modernization. I am not comfortable. I mean, we need to strengthen the law to weed out certain people who might want to enter. In the last, particularly for the selection of the 10 regional reps, we heard all sorts of accusations about vote buying and campaign of delegates and a whole lot of things, and it wasn't too palatable. I believe such a body deserves better. We don't need just everybody trying to get in there. So we need to start looking at all those things. I also want to look at getting representatives from some key bodies. We have the Ghana Bar Association, we have the organized labor and all those people. We need to start looking at all this.
Thank you very much. So we definitely need the Council of States, the best song for, as we will call it in traditional parlance, your best song for, and you need it. I'm telling you, in times of crisis, you fall on them. But we just need to modernize it to fit in this technological world. Otherwise, everybody would think they are there for their wages because we don't see what work they're doing. But I always give you this number, 024 366 2001, 024 366 2001. We say thank you to Aisha Ibrahim, the producer, and thank you to Yao Forson, the director, and thank you to my guest for coming on the show this evening. Yes, thank you.
No, it's a pleasure.
And tomorrow we'll be back to do this all over again. Thank you for watching.